Hey guys, welcome back to Trust Me It's Worth It. This week we're doing things a bit differently, and this is now sort of a mini-sode, if you will, that is called Trust Us It's Worth It, in which we are going to talk about one show that we have both watched that we think you at home should watch because it's great and we love it. So this week we are talking about Avatar The Last Airbender, and actually I'm going to hand over to Mike because he knows infinitely more about this show than I do. So, Mike, do you want to take the reins?
Yeah, so for people that don't know, Avatar The Last Airbender, it's an American animated television show that was released on Nickelodeon back in 2005 and finished in 2008. And it's like a classic hero's journey. It follows the story of Aang, who is an airbender. So people in this world have like telekinetic, psychokinetic powers over the classical elements, so air, earth, fire and water. And Aang has to defeat the evil Fire Lord that's a tyrant taking over the world. It's a pretty simple premise, and yeah, it's got a lot to it. And the reason I think we wanted to talk about it really was not just to stall for shows that one of us might not have seen.
Yeah, totally not stalling. No.
Well, to be fair, we've got a backlog of things to talk about, but really, I think after talking about Castlevania last week, where I spoke about the fact that that was American animation, but had a lot of Japanese influence from anime, the Avatar The Last Airbender is, in my opinion, one of the greatest television shows ever made, like full stop. Doesn't matter it's a kid's show, doesn't matter it's animated, or anything about that. I think it is genuinely one of the greatest shows ever made for so many reasons. That it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's clever.
Oh yeah.
It's got a very easy to understand plot and journey. Every episode is entertaining.
The animals are cute as hell.
Yeah, it's great for people of all ages. It's literally a perfect family show. You can appreciate it as a child, as an adult. And I think by virtue of the fact that my mum actually quite liked watching it when I had it on TV as a kid, proves that fact. So I think I just wanted to go on, and a lot of people know about this show and it's quite popular online, but maybe for people that have listened to the podcast, and we've been talking about a lot of adult shows generally, like I think most of the shows we've been talking about have been at least 15s or 18s, right? Like District 9's an 18,
Yeah.
Misfits is 15, 18, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure Castlevania will be an 18 or at least a 15. Yes. So I wanted to talk about this show because I genuinely think it is one of the best shows ever made, and it is a show that I forced Emily to watch.
You did. I mean, I had watched bits of it, but obviously when you're a kid and you watch it on wherever it was, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, it never runs in order. You just watch episodes, you never watch them.
Yeah.
And you either, if it's a two-parter, you see maybe probably part 2 first, and then hopefully eventually we'll catch part 1. So I'd seen bits, but I'd never watched it properly all the way through, and then we watched it together last year, and I was addicted from the start.
Yeah, it's on that point you said about watching shows like not in order. That was such a plague of our childhood, and I wonder if that's still the same now. Because do you ever see like American TV shows, or people talk about? Well, I listen to a lot of like podcasts with Americans on, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't watch it like week to week. You know, when each episode came out, I was like, week to week. They were random. They were bloody random.
Things like didn't come out week to week. You just kind of hoped and prayed.
I used to watch Digimon every week at my grandparents' house, and I'd look forward to it. But it was not in order. It was just totally random episodes that they take out. And it was the same time every week that Digimon was on. And I specifically was like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I've got to watch Digimon, or whatever time it was on. But it wasn't the next episode in the series. It was just a random one. So you had to, piece together. But I think that's part of the good thing about Avatar, actually.
Oh, yeah, it made me appreciate Avatar.
It has an overarching story that's quite easy to follow. But I think you could also equally take an episode out of anywhere, watch it and probably enjoy it. Just as it is.
Yeah, so let's go to the basics. I mean, most people have heard of Avatar, hopefully, but what is an avatar? Because we've spoken about the 4 bending qualities that people have, and not you only have one. Well, we've often discussed what we would be. Apparently, I'd be an earthbender because I'm stubborn, which really I am not.
I'm not stubborn. I am not. Proof in the pudding, right there.
Yeah.
So the world of Avatar is set in a sort of fictional East Asia. It's mostly China, like the Earth Kingdom is quite clearly meant to be China. I've always interpreted the Fire Nation as Japan.
I have as well.
The Fire Nation invading Japan, and then I think the air nomads are sort of like Buddhist monks. And then the water tribes are sort of Inuit peoples.
In there, yeah, they're the sort of South and North Pole, aren't they? That's
Yeah,
where they
exactly.
reside.
And the world is really fleshed out and really cool. But the Avatar, the sort of story is a very classic hero's journey, which is part of what I wanted to talk about. Because this show's so big, we want to talk about some main points about the show. So I want to talk about the hero's journey. I want to talk about the comedy aspects of the show. I want to talk about the female characters and get your perspective on female characters in the show.
I'm ready.
How media for children can still be great and deemed good in their own right.
Yeah.
And then also the best character probably ever in a TV show. We want to talk about Zuko.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna gush. Prince Zuko.
The girls love Zuko. But yeah, the Avatar is a reincarnated individual who's the only person alive with the power to use all four of the bending elements. And in this world, bending is the word for using the magic to control one of the elements. And people from each nation, it's like it seems to be a blood-related thing, and not everyone has this power that's in that world. It seems to be like a small proportion of people are born with this ability. It seems to be a hereditary trait. So people in the Earth Kingdom, a few of them will be able to earthbend, people in the Fire Nation firebend, and so on. And the Avatar is one person that can learn to master all four elements.
Yeah, and they're meant to kind of keep peace, aren't they? Is that what
they're
for?
They are. I mean, we learn. I want to make this clear as well. We're not going to be talking about Avatar: Legend of Korra, or of course not the film made by M. Night Shyamalan.
Just pretend it didn't happen.
There is a live-action film which is appalling, and no one should watch that. We'll just totally disregard that.
We're going to pretend it's not there.
Yeah, exactly. And we won't be talking about any of the comic books or anything like that. Just what's in the show, just what's in the 3 seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender. What was I talking about? Where was I?
We were talking about the Avatar. What is the Avatar?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So the Avatar is the one that masters all four elements. At the start of every episode, you get a pretty good, succinct explanation of what happened. That 100 years ago, a war happened. The Fire Nation invaded. They attacked and killed all of the Airbenders in a genocidal assault, and then they invaded most of the Earth Kingdom, defeated the Southern Water Tribe, and are still at war in the Earth Kingdom. They're basically trying to conquer the entire world. And then at that time, Aang, the main character, was an airbender, and he flew off on his pet bison in a sort of upset rage that we learn a bit more about.
Yep.
He falls in a storm, falls into the ocean, and his natural instincts kick in, and he freezes himself in a block of ice. 100 years later, he gets discovered by a girl called Katara and her
I really
brother
just wanted
Sokka.
to start the beginning. Like the opening thing is
100
like
years
years ago, my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named
Maybe
Aang.
we should just play that clip, actually.
We'll play it. Listen to this. It explains it all.
Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
I love that, especially when it's like, but I believe Aang can save the world.
I'm not sure she says it
That's
like
not
that
even how
every
she says
time.
it.
Yeah, when you watch the show enough, you'll realise that you could just sort of say along with it, can't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, so, rather than just gushing too much, let's get into what we like about the show. So
Where do you want to start?
I think maybe we'll start with the female characters, actually, because then that'll get you involved. So from my perspective, and I think this is why it's such fabulous writing, you don't notice that there are a plethora of female characters more than you would probably have in your average show, which I think says a lot about... The creators have been quite... Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, I think that's his name. Those are the 2 guys that made the show for Nickelodeon, have been quite open about the fact that they really want to push gender equality and disabled characters and things like that. And so... it's not really that surprising that there are some really awesome female characters in the show.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I particularly I want to talk about Katara. What do you think about Katara? So Katara is the girl who, speaking in that opening you saw, she discovers Aang, and she's also kind of Aang's love interest.
Yeah, and she's water tribe, so she's a waterbender.
Yeah, and she's one of the only waterbenders left from the Southern Water Tribe because they all got captured, and she has a lot of grief about her mother who was killed by the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think of her?
I really like Tara. think she breaks a lot of boundaries in what she does, because there's episodes where she wants to learn to fight with her waterbending, and she really trains hard, and she trains Aang hard. And the guy that does the training for the waterbenders is like, oh no, women only learn to heal with their powers. That is what you will do. And then so she kicks his ass.
Yeah, there's a patriarchal leader in the Northern Water Tribe that they go to teach Aang waterbending, because Aang, in order to defeat the Fire Lord, he needs to learn all four elements.
Yeah.
He's got to master all the elements, that's the key narrative. It's very. We'll talk about the hero's journey a bit maybe, but that's the key part. And they go to this Master Paku, who's the best waterbender, and he refuses to train Katara along with Aang. She's a woman, yeah. Yeah. And that episode is basically just all about her breaking down these gender barriers.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Like, I suppose at times people may think it's a bit cliche, but I really enjoy it just because she doesn't take no for an answer. She doesn't take it lying down. She doesn't go, oh, maybe I will just be a healer. But then we see in later episodes, she's also a very competent healer. She can do both.
Well, they also, I think the reason, I mean, that episode stands out in a way because it's the only one that addresses this issue of them not allowing women to become waterbenders. And by the end of the episode, Katara basically proves her point and shows that she actually loses to him in a fight, but she proves her determination and that she's capable of keeping up with the men, and he kind of learns his lesson.
Oh, yeah.
And we also learn a bit about why he's treats women like that. So this guy, he is upholding this old tradition, but it also gives you a bit of a backstory in that the reason he's like this is because of a personal relationship with a woman. And he's basically got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about being left by the love of his life.
Oh, yeah.
Which was Katara's grandmother, I think.
That's
right, yeah. So he gets left by the love of his life, and so he's a bit jaded his whole life about women.
Oh,
and I think
he needs to get over it.
But that's clever, because it shows this character isn't just a one-dimensional woman hater. He has this view, and he's also flexible and willing to change like real people in the real world. And I think it's a good lesson that, you know, somebody might have a different view, but there might be a legitimate, not even necessarily legitimate reason, but that there is a reason that he thinks like that. But I want to talk about Katara because I think she's also a stressy, emotional person.
Oh yeah, so I think regardless to that episode, she does have her moments where she is very stressed. She is emotional.
Yeah.
And you have a parallel sort of in the end where someone writes a play about them, and her character spends the whole time crying.
Oh yeah.
And talking about how much hope they have. And I think all the way through the series, she just has a great way of sort of, if there was a leader of the group, I would almost say it's her.
Well, she's the matriarch, really.
Yeah,
she mothers them.
She mothers them, but not in the way of, oh, I'll set up camp, I'll do the cooking, blah, 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 blah. It's like when they're in the middle of the crisis, although Sokka, who we'll come on to, is the plan maker, he's good at his, like, war tactics. Katara is first in line, she's there in a crisis, she's ready. At no point does she back down to any character. And I think, had been given the opportunity, had I not been able to go up against the Fire Lord, she would have. And I think a lot of young girls, I think especially when I was younger, it was great to watch her. And I remember being in a swimming pool and pretending to be a waterbender, because she just oozes this confidence in herself, but there are moments of vulnerability, and you see that.
The reason I think she's such a clever character in a sense is because she isn't perfect.
Yeah.
She isn't, and she isn't just a male character that's been reskinned as a woman. She actually has a lot of very feminine traits and what would be considered stereotypical feminine traits. She is emotional. Mm-hmm. She's quick to temper. She does mother people. She does baby her older brother.
Yeah.
And treats him, like he's a little brother. But I mean, that's partly because of the loss of her own mother and the fact that she had to step into this maternal role. But she has a lot of these attributes. Yeah, she talks the most about hope, and she's probably the quickest to tear up. Yeah,
she's very caring. She can't see people in danger. Like, a lot of the time, the reason they probably get into maybe a bit of trouble is because Aang and Sokka are like, no, we can't help everyone. And she refuses to not try.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that she's just like, I don't care what you say. If we can help people, we're helping them.
Yeah, but that's what I think is so... The reason I think she's so good is because I actually don't love her. Like, if I met her, I might not get on with her, but I still think she's a brilliant character.
Oh, yeah, because you see, like, when we'll come on to Toph in a minute, there's a lot of tension between them at the beginning, like having two girls in camp. Girls can be catty towards each other, especially at that young age in that situation.
And Toph's a real tomboy.
So they're very opposite people.
Yeah, but I think that's a real... I really am just trying to pay tribute to the fact that they've managed to write a character that is female, embodies a lot of female characteristics, but she is also strong and literally powerful in the universe. She becomes an incredibly powerful waterbender, and you watch that journey of her learning.
Yeah, you watch her grow in front of you, and I would say she was a bit of a role model to me when I was younger. She was always very strong, determined.
Yeah, exactly.
And embodied that of, yes, I can be, the emotional female side, but also that doesn't stop me being, I don't know, as strong as any other man around me.
Exactly.
If anything, it makes me strong in some ways because it means I'm more passionate about what it is I'm doing. Like, her passion is seen throughout it all, and she constantly wants to care for Aang and look after him and get him to where he needs to be. And she pushes him, but also is the shoulder to cry on, which is why you see their kind of love blossom, probably.
Yeah, and I mean, she is the love interest for the main character, but that isn't only what she is.
She isn't just there to be.
No, she totally isn't. And in fact, she has like a sort of other boyfriend at one point in the show that Aang never gets the same treatment of. But moving on from that, you mentioned Toph.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I want to talk about like disabled characters maybe a bit as well, because I didn't notice this as a kid, obviously. But they're actually they're at least, Toph is blind.
Yeah, can I describe Toph?
Yeah,
because I love her character. So she is an earthbender, and I think, to be fair, if I was any character in Avatar, I'd be Toph.
I'd want to be Toph. She's the coolest. Yeah.
So yeah, she is blind, and she comes from a very well-known family, very high-ranking family.
Yeah, super rich.
Super rich. And her parents don't believe that she can do anything, and she needs help because she's blind. And
she's mollycoddled.
Yeah,
basically.
She's very much mollycoddled. And she fights back from that so much. And one of the cool things about bending is that the original people that learn how to bend learned it from different animals. So Toph learns to use her earthbending by watching the moles.
The badger moles.
The badger moles.
Something you should know about the show as well is that every animal, or almost every animal, is a fusion of two other animals. So there's like koala bears, platypus bears, badger moles.
Badger mole. And so yeah, the way she essentially sees is that she feels with her feet, which is...
Yeah, she senses vibrations.
She senses the vibrations on the floor with her feet, which is why she's always barefoot. She can't not be barefoot. But it makes her just the best earthbender because she really is one with the earth. And eventually she essentially runs away from her parents because they mollycoddle her so much that it's just kind of draining any hope she has of being capable. And she is one of the most capable members in that team.
I think very simply... in the original, if you watch some behind the scenes stuff, originally Toph's character was going to be a big burly bloke,
really?
And they decided actually it would kind of be funnier if their name was like Toph, sounds a bit like tough, but they were a little girl, and then making her blind as well. That ties so beautifully in with what her abilities are, and it explains in the narrative why she's so powerful. The fact that, like you said, she uses her earthbending constantly and can't not use it, otherwise she wouldn't be able to see.
Oh, yeah.
So it totally makes sense that this girl would be one of the greatest earthbenders ever. But she also, personality-wise, is tough as nails.
Oh, she's very hard-headed, very tomboy.
Yeah, but
very much no messing around.
Yeah, but she literally is disabled. And in this fantasy universe, they've given her superpowers. And that's quite cool, I think, that there's a blind character that is superpowered.
Yeah.
And also later in the show, there's a character that appears a couple of times, a boy in a wheelchair, and his dad's an inventor, and his dad invents a chair that he can fly in.
Yeah.
So he goes around with these glider basically attached to his wheelchair, and so he can actually fly around, which is again quite cool. Like that totally makes sense as well, that people because it's meant to be in 100 years of war, there are going to be people that are injured from the war,
Yeah.
there are going to be disabled people, and how do they cope? And the fact that this guy's dad is an inventor, and it plays in really nicely, I think. There's all these little details that stack up to make it so
I'm saying, because when I watched it when I was younger, I didn't think anything of Toph. I just thought she was a really cool character. I loved the way her earthbending worked with her disability. And then now when I watched it when I was older, I was like, oh my gosh, she's actually just the coolest character ever. I do relate to her. She's very hard-headed. Yeah. She is great when fighting. Like, she's very strong-willed.
Well, that's the whole sort of premise of Earthbenders, is almost that they would, like, run headfirst into a brick wall, literally.
Yeah, literally.
They won't go around a problem, they won't dance around something.
Yeah. And she's very kind of hard on Aang, to be fair, 'cause she always calls him Twinkle Toes. That's her pet name for him, I suppose, if you will. And I just think she adds, again, another level to female characters in the fact that she is so small, but she's so tough and resilient.
And she represents the other side of the spectrum to Katara. You already mentioned this, but she is very much a tomboy. She doesn't care about her appearance. Obviously, she's blind, so she kind of doesn't need to care. And she, spits and farts and stuff and finds that stuff fun and gets on better with the boys, really. And there's tension between the two girls. But also, they do have a nice moment of reconciliation where they both go out and do their makeup. And again, I really like that because I think it shows that you don't have to have a strong female character that just does male things or just is a badass. They can still look pretty. Like there's no reason I don't think you can't have both of those things at once. But, I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I suppose I do. I suppose it's very hard when talking about female characters because a lot of them you either are butch and a badass, but you don't really look at your appearance, or you are the complete opposite and you're the love interest and you're more damsel in distress.
Yeah.
And so for me, I enjoy that you have two, basically from the start, very strong female characters that have a little bit of both. I mean, at no point are they the damsel in distress. At no point do they necessarily need saving.
Yeah.
But you do see their soft side. And even with Toph, who is very hard-headed, you still see that she has a soft side. She still needs her own guidance. Even though she's very much, I'm on my own, it's just me.
Yeah.
She does open up. And I love that you, as you say, as you see them as both. And I love the journey that you see them on from the beginning to the end. Because by the end of it, Toph invents metal bending, which no one has done before. And I know we're not talking about the Korra series, but she goes on to play a role in that.
Yeah.
And essentially makes a whole city. And it's amazing to see her from the beginning and follow that journey with her and see what she achieves. And you're rooting for her the whole time. But you're also like, I don't need to be rooting for you because you've just got this.
Yeah.
You're there.
I also just want to briefly mention while we're talking about female characters, one of the criticisms that this show sometimes draws, and when I say one of the criticisms, this show has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's good.
It has like a 92 on Metacritic. It is pretty universally well liked. But the Fire Lord as the bad guy is often considered a bit one-dimensional because he's just the big bad man.
Yeah, he is just big bad Fire Lord.
He's voiced by Mark Hamill as well, Luke Skywalker.
He's a good voice actor.
He is also voices the Joker. But anyway, he is a bit one-dimensional. There's not a lot to him. He's just evil for the sake of evil, just conquers things.
Yeah, he just wants to conquer the world to conquer the world.
However, Azula, his daughter, is one of the most interesting villains.
She is
and
sadistic.
She has a little gang of her two best friends. I don't want to go into too much detail about them, but basically a gang of 3 female baddies come along, and they're baddies, but we also see stuff from their perspective, so we sympathise with them to some extent, and they represent different spectrums. There's a goth girl, there's a really girly girl who's from the circus and does flips and is really pretty and gets all the boys, and then there's Azula that is literally a psycho bitch.
Oh yeah, she is literally psychotic.
But there's a lot of cool nuance to her, and she is a very sophisticated villain.
She is the villain, I think, that would probably scare me the most because you really don't know what she's going to do next. And obviously she's a firebender, but she also has these lightning power abilities. Yeah. And I think they're really, because you do see, obviously, female go against female, and you see Katara go against her. And watching that fight is so cool because at no point do you know who's going to win because they both have this such determination and the level of detail into both these kind of sides of evil. And you do... what's the word? I've forgotten the word already.
Empathise.
Yeah, you do empathise, and you empathise with all of them on both sides, which is really strange. Which I think maybe brings us nicely on to Zuko. I really want to talk about him.
Yeah, so Prince Zuko, the reason he's pretty beloved in the fan base, but he has probably one of the most famous redemption arcs of any character. So he starts out as the banished prince, where his father. Basically, he spoke out in a war council meeting. You don't really find this out till a bit later, but he basically dishonoured his father. His father, to punish him, burnt a big scar onto his face over his eye.
Agni Kai?
Yeah, which is like a duel. They basically had a pistols at dawn duel with firebending. He refused to fight his own dad. His dad burnt his face and then banished him. Yeah. And his banishment, his father said, the only way you can come back is if you capture the Avatar alive, because the Avatar's been missing for 100 years. So he thinks he's looking for an old man. And then eventually he finds Aang and he keeps trying to hunt him. So that's the banished prince, and he's just determined with getting his honour back. That's all his character is when we meet him at the start. Yeah. And then he becomes...
Yeah. And obviously his uncle is with him the whole way. We'll not get onto his uncle, but oh my gosh, beautiful man. Love him.
He's great as well, but we haven't got time.
Yeah, so Zuko from the beginning, you see where his determination comes from. And you do empathise with him because he just wants to, be with his father. He's technically next in line to the throne. He just wants to do everything he can to get that respect back.
Yeah, and also you learn a bit more about it, but his mother, he was obviously a bit of a mummy's boy.
Oh, yeah.
And his mum, it's heavily implied...
So you totally relate to that, right, Mike?
Yeah, exactly. It's heavily implied that his mum sort of sacrificed herself so that his dad wouldn't kill his own son.
Yeah.
For reasons we won't go into, but that's left him somewhat emotionally scarred, I think, as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's both physically scarred and emotionally scarred. And his character design is very clever, I think, in that way.
Yeah, I think what I like about his arc is, from the beginning, you wouldn't see it coming because he is so driven by this one goal, this one ambition. And then slowly little things happen. And as he's travelling around, he's seeing people. He's seeing what the Fire Nation is doing. He's, undercover, so no one knows he's a firebender. And little things just kind of chip away at him. And then that moment when he basically wants to swap sides because he realised how evil his dad is and his sister is, because him and his sister hate each other, is beautiful for me, because obviously he's just spent the last year trying to kill Aang, and so he kind of walks up and goes, "Hi, Zuko here." And obviously none of them trust him.
Yeah, there's a clever dynamic he's constantly at conflict about whether what he's doing is right.
Yeah, it's very internal, isn't it?
And whether and who he's supposed to be and what his place in the world is. And you really, really sympathise with him, even though he's the main baddie of the first season. And in many respects, a lot of things he does, he makes terrible decisions.
Oh, yeah.
He makes some really bad decisions that really put our protagonists in genuine jeopardy and almost kills them many times.
Oh, yeah.
And yet you still, at the end of it, think, I would have done the same thing maybe in his position. He's in such a difficult spot.
100%.
He's tortured internally and,
mentally by his family.
Yeah.
And so, and by the end of it, by the sort of, last series when he has changed sides and he's with them and he's had this massive redemption arc, you can't help but kind of fist bump the air and be like, yes, Zuko, he is just the best. And even then, once he's kind of in the group, he's still very close, he's still having that internal struggle, he's still not sure. And watching him grow with them and open up and by the end, be a bit more, I suppose, human with them is amazing. And I think it just really shows, especially as a young child, that you may make bad decisions, but at any point you can turn around and
you're not
change.
defined by your evil family.
And you're not defined by your evil family. But I think, it kind of goes with that whole, yes, you may make bad decisions, but you're not just on one path. It is what you decide, is what you do, and you make the choice to be right or wrong.
I didn't realise this as well. I just thought he's also physically terribly disfigured.
Yeah.
As well, in a sort of...
But I still find him very attractive.
I was about to say, I've had,
Weirdly.
not just you, multiple women have said they think Zuko's fit.
He might be one of the only cartoon characters I find really attractive.
He is ripped.
Everyone likes a bad boy, apparently, even in cartoon form.
Yeah, he is. He's one for the ladies.
He's just a beautiful guy,
hot.
and all the way through, you just want him. All the way through, you're praying and you're pushing and you're literally screaming at the screen. Do you make the right choice? And when he finally does, you're ecstatic about it.
Yeah.
But let's move on. I kind of want to talk about the media for children because I know this is something you've got a lot of thoughts on.
I'm quite passionate about this. I think
you really are. So let's go with your kind of rant of passion first.
It's just so I think I get frustrated when, and I do think this is somewhat people that are a bit, I don't know, pseudo-intellectual sometimes, that can't see the merit in something that isn't Oscar-worthy or hasn't been designed to fit into that view of what a great film or TV show or whatever should be. And I sometimes think media for children gets really overlooked in how sophisticated it can be. And a lot of people, this is not a niche case. A lot of people appreciate how good Avatar is.
Oh, yeah.
And it did win awards. And it is well-renowned and the creator's got a lot of money, etc. But I don't know if there's enough, like I say, there's probably a very few film courses probably study the feminism of Last Airbender. Yeah, I would say as a piece of feminist, media literature, it's one of the best examples of how to write good characters like that. If you want to learn about the hero's journey, which is the classic tale of, how you go from where the ups and downs should be. Zero to hero, or like the rise, the fall, all these key moments. They're there, they're very clear, and they're very, very well presented, and in a way that a child can understand, but also an adult can appreciate. And that's such a fine line to walk. That's why I think it's a real skill.
Yeah, I think it does well in the fact that it knows it's a children's show, and so, it is for kids, but also it doesn't, which I think a lot of shows do, is treat them like children.
Yeah.
It very much is like, it deals with issues that children would deal with, which is maybe like family conflict, disability.
Yeah, just or like the kid doesn't have to get it all, right?
No.
Like the reason The Simpsons was probably so successful early on, I think, was that there are jokes that mum and dad can laugh at and the kids won't get, and the kids will never question that.
Yeah.
But the kid will laugh at the other funny bits that are just, more childish. And Avatar does a really good job of that, I think, where it mixes very kiddie comedy, which isn't a pejorative term. Like, I think that can be really funny, but also with some adult bits. There's an episode where they're lost in the desert and they're really thirsty, and so Sokka cuts off a cactus and drinks the cactus juice.
And then, like, hallucinates.
So it's clearly a drug analogy, which is, quite common in stuff.
And he's, like, running around like, try cactus juice. It'll quench you. It's the quenchiest.
And then he just, like, licks a substance on the wall and keeps tripping. But it's clearly a drug analogy about, a bad trip. But it's also a kid can just giggle at the fact that this guy's, like, saying these silly things.
Oh my gosh. Also, just to mention in that episode, which is hysterical, is also the saddest episode because it deals with, like, loss, in a way, in the fact that Oppa, the sky bison, if you don't know what a sky bison is, look at our Instagram. I have a stuffed toy of it. It's my prized possession. Gets stolen, and you really see Aang break down then and kind of lose all control because this is a thing that's been by his side since he was young.
It's the equivalent of the dog getting shot in John Wick or something, right?
100%.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's soul crushing to watch, and you spend the next few episodes praying that they find Appa.
I mean, maybe that's, in a sense, I think that's kind of a good example of somebody watches John Wick and they're like, oh my god, it's so sad when the dog dies. I know it's just at the start, it's a setup to an action movie, right? But you can take the point, or I Am Legend when the dog dies in that.
Yep.
People think that's, and talk about the emotional impact that can have.
Yeah.
But really, Avatar does a much better job of showing how much that can twist a character like Aang, who is a boy, he's a vegetarian, he's effectively a Buddhist monk who doesn't really like to use violence and is a very caring person. That's his personality, and he would never consciously hurt people, or it'd be even behave in an angry manner. And then when his best friend, his pet that he's had since a child, is stolen by poachers, basically, he loses it and uses his powers, and it only takes his friends that can calm him down. But that is a more powerful scene than we get in, something short like John Wick or like I'm trying to think of other Marley and Me, or whenever
it is a very sad scene, and
you
finally see him lose control, as you say, because he always has an internal struggle with the Fire Lord of it's not in my nature to kill, and he has his own internal struggle of I've always been taught that killing is not the answer, violence is not the answer. I don't want to do that, and so I just love it all. Is there anything else you want to comment on?
I think by virtue of the fact that we're analysing this so deeply, and if you go on YouTube, there are going to be loads of video essays going more in depth with people that know more about it than we do. But the point really is just that I wanted to make a case for the fact that shows, I'm going to take like Goosebumps, Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, Jackie Chan Adventures, stuff like that. Like, they're all great shows, and I think they deserve more credit for being kids' shows. But Avatar The Last Airbender set a new bar for me, where I think literally anyone of any age can watch it and enjoy it, as long as they don't have this weird opinion of, I'm not going to watch a cartoon. And I think that's a real barrier that held it back. And the fact that they made a live-action movie tells me a lot about that there was no need to make a live-action film.
Oh gosh, no, there was so not.
And the live-action film is
terrible.
bad, but even if it was a good adaptation, even if they'd adapted it well, I don't think it was necessary, and it was just a case of people in Hollywood cottoning onto, and it is a true fact that people want to watch films and TV shows with real people and not cartoons. But I just think they're missing out on something.
I just think even though it's a cartoon, those are still real people and they're real characters. And, you know, even watching it, you relate to them just because it's a cartoon. And don't get me wrong, you know, I love a good cartoon. You can still relate to it, and it still gives a lot of weirdly good life advice. And even as you say, as a kid, even if you don't get that, it's entertaining, it's funny, but it deals with issues, you know, that kids go through that people seem to kind of push aside because they're young.
Yeah, and also just let's face it, it's a fun action show as well. What a great medium to get any positive message across. Like, we focused on maybe some minute elements of this, but let's not escape from the fact that it's a great action show that any kid would probably want to watch just because it's cool.
Yes.
It ticks the cool box, right? It's got martial arts with magic in it, right? But ultimately, this show was kind of lightning in a bottle. I don't think, this sounds pessimistic, but I don't think any show is ever going to be quite like this.
No.
And especially not without the appreciation for child media. Like there is a sequel to The Legend of Korra, which is very divisive amongst the fans. I actually quite enjoy it, but
It's good, but it will never beat the original.
And there is a series on Netflix now, The Dragon Prince. Do you say season 3 has just come out?
Season 3 is out, yeah. Now we're plugging it for Netflix, apparently.
Well, it's by one of the creators that I can't remember. I think it might be Michael DiMartino, which is a fun show. We've been quite enjoying it, right? But it's not at the level of Avatar. And there are so many things that went into that show. If you look at the behind the scenes, the level of choreography they went to for the fight scenes, the music, the character design. There are all these
animal design, because like Momo, what was he? Like
I think he's a lemur bat. I think
he's a lemur bat.
Just there are all these aspects that must have a lot of talented people working together, working very hard, and I don't know if it will ever be done again. I think this is the pinnacle of child's media, and I think more adults should appreciate it and look at it
and watch it.
And just
watch it,
just see how good it is. And even if, because the first episode is quite clearly a pilot, and I think it is more kiddie, but there's only 3 seasons of, like, I don't know, 20 episodes each or something. There's not that much to
and
get
they're only
through.
like 20 minutes each.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kids show. It's easy to watch. I thoroughly recommend it. Can't recommend it enough.
So there we go, guys. Thank you for listening this week for our sort of mini-sode of Trust Us, It's Worth It. The one time we're not battling it out because we found a show we both love. So
maybe we'll do this every now and again.
Every now and again.
As a break.
So if you enjoyed it, thank you so much. Follow us on Instagram now at Trust Me It's Worth It. And then follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, everywhere basically. Give us a rating, give us a follow, a subscribe. It would be amazing. And we will be back next week, guys, because trust me, it's worth it.
Give this podcast a good sub.